So I shuffled and pulled some cards, and I'll put that video on the screen somewhere so you can see it. But my question was the 22-year-old that they have in custody the actual pupiller of Kirk? And also wanted to share that he has been making his rounds to intuitives. I'm sure that you have come across some videos where they've mentioned that Kirk, has tried to connect with them to say something or whatever. I will say I also connected with him on the day of his passing. Now, an old school psychic would say, oh, that's not possible because there's always a period of time, a transition that a soul has to go through before they're strong enough to connect. But in my experience, what I have seen is that depending on how strong-willed that soul is, they can make a connection. So there's only been a few people that I've connected to immediately after they have passed that way, and a couple while they were in a coma, still kind of connected through machines, but and that cord of energy, but hadn't quite disconnected, I guess. So he was one of them, surprisingly to me, because I certainly wasn't seeking it out. But there he was in confusion, right? I'm confused about what happened. I heard, what the F just happened? Not knowing what to do. And then he gave me the impression that he had this whole, he was going to change his ways, and walk himself towards decency later in life. Like it was all mapped out. And it started with requesting the files. Now, he connected with me again, and that time I listened for a moment, and then I sent him away. I'm like, I can't help you. And then he connected with me again, and then I heard the song by Andre 3000, Bombs Over Baghdad, because there were tons of things going off in the image that I saw. And I heard that I don't know how to get out of here. So what I've also learned is when people pass during that transition. So my father, for example, came to me early on, an hour or so after he was no longer here, and he was furious and trying to figure out how to get back, right? So then after, he realized that wasn't possible, there was this period where he was kind of waiting and trying to figure out where to go. His experience, as he showed it to me, of course, wasn't nearly as volatile because he wasn't an evil person, and nor was he a white supremacist with all that vitriol sort of built up, because like energy, right, begets like energy. And so this image that I saw of Kirk, though, it's like him running almost in a landmine where things are going off, and he's kind of looping, and so I wish his soul peace. But okay, getting back to the question that I had here, was the 22-year-old, the one that they have in custody, the actual pupiller? So we've got the waning gibbous card, and so I'm pulling again from the Celestial Bodies deck, an 84 card deck. It is numerology, astrology, and an oracle deck. Here's the first card, the waning gibbous. The second card is the solar eclipse. Here's the 22 card that came out. And I'm sure this is talking about our boy. The boy. That boy. And then here's the new moon card. As well as, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, the Yod. Okay, so this card is about synthesizing information, connectivity, gathering info, and demonstration. So I feel like this is talking about the incident itself and the aftermath of people trying to piece together information, flying off of the handle. Look at how things are kind of breaking off and floating, or falling rather. And so there's this feeling it's kind of got a little disruptive feeling. There's a cloud. There could also be smoke behind there. And so I would say that this is talking about, like I said, the incident, people trying to piece together the info, getting it wrong in all the directions, speculating, jumping to conclusions. And this is also talking about what came out during a full moon. And this is not only talking about information, it's talking about synthesizing lessons as well. So some folks who have flown off of the handle about who may have committed, these acts against Kirk, about who may have unalived Kirk, now have to walk it back and think it through in a different way, because it's all extremely confusing, right? We have a supposed person who is the pure, that everything in my gut says is not the pure. But then the narrative falls apart as well, right? This narrative that they were going to push about how now they need to retaliate and take it to the streets. Well, they can't push that. It's kind of fallen on its face there, nice and flat. So there's a lot to consider in terms of what the lessons are that the United States is learning about this, that different sides are learning about this, and about how it's all taking us away from what might be the truth behind it, right? Because if we're looking over there, then we're going to miss the truth over there, right? So this is synthesizing, gathering the information, gathering the lessons, making sense of it. And with the second card, we don't really know what's going on. That's what this card is saying, right? With the solar eclipse, things are obfuscated. They're hidden, they're obscure, they're unclear. And so this is kind of where we are in the aftermath of what happened and what's going on with regards to the question that I asked. Is 22, I'm just going to call him 22. Is 22 the guy, right? And this card is also talking about the obfuscation of identity and ego, and how we have to learn to recognize and observe the wisdom in the unexpected shift, because it's a gift. And so I feel like that is kind of talking about the realizations that some people are coming to about how quickly they flew off the handle, how maybe they are just as confused as the rest of us, and therefore can't quickly come to conclusions, because they were super hot and heavy. Lots of them were super hot and heavy. And I heard an intuitive say something like, oh, if you're using language of they and us, then you're playing right into the hand of, this administration and what they want to continue to sow the division and all of that. And I totally get where they are coming from, and there's truth to that. But there is also a they and an us. Sorry to say. But people like me they were ready to go get the pitchforks for yesterday, right? Well, all liberals, they said. I remember watching one TikTok and the woman was so angry, saying that she wanted to see exes of liberals that were public. And I'm sure you know what I'm getting at here. So there is a they versus us right now. Sorry to say. And I understand where you're coming, where that intuitive is coming from by saying, we need to really bridge this gap, and that is what this card is saying. That is what this card is saying. Like, peep the wisdom, right, of this unexpected shift. So we need to do some of that, but we also need to not bypass, because HSBCUs, did I say that right? Black colleges were one of their targets. And, you know, being in this skin, we've always got to keep, as they say, our heads on a swivel. I had to call my adult children and say, hey, be extra careful. And so as long as I'm having to do those things, there is a they. There's a they versus us. Sorry to say. But all right. We can also take a step back and see, ooh, this might be something that opens some people's eyes. That also says, hey, maybe you've been hoodwinked. Maybe you've been played, because some stuff is just not adding up, right? Who were the guys standing behind him doing those signs, right? What were the signals? What did the signals mean? And if it's number 22, then why are some of the details feeling a little off? Where was his equipment if he was pew-pewing from that far away? And then how deep does this go? Because the narrative that they're trying to, that they were trying to push immediately after, like, hey, we're going to meet you in the streets here because, you know, if you keep messing with our side, right, we're coming after you, kind of thing. And then to find out some of the details of 22, that his entire family was MAGA, is MAGA, that he was heavily indoctrinated in that rhetoric, supposedly, allegedly. This is where things get obscure, right? We don't know the details. And also, we've got to keep coming back to the point of, does the rhetoric matter right now? I'd say yeah. I'd say that's what fueled this whole incident. Because if you know anything about the person who was murdered, well, and to be honest, I didn't really know that much about him. I had seen a few clips. I knew he wasn't my cup of tea, and I stayed away from his videos. But these last couple of days here, oh man, I've read quote after quote of his, seen clip after clip, and I'm disgusted. So does the rhetoric matter? It kind of does. That is what is encasing this entire ordeal. And here's 22 with all of his options. I feel like this is talking about life path options, right? Because 22, they come in, they're like the architecture. They're the master builder. That's the 22 number. And here's all of the many different options in life until they reach their full potential. But then here are also the temptations. And, you know, just the temptations on many levels, the conditioning, the traps that we fall into. And at least for this 22, well, the trap of the family pushing you to do something. That's what this yod card signifies at the bottom of the deck. This card is also a card that means that the person came here to build great things and shift humanity. So, again, the options, the pitfalls, and the temptations that this card is saying, oh, this person was going to build great things and shift humanity. And so when we think about that, how deep does this story go with him and his father? That's what it makes me think of. And how twisted up was their understanding of what they may have planned together. Like, you know, the intention and the purpose behind it, right? If they planned that thing together, why? Why would they, if the family is MAGA, take out one of their own? Was he just the fall guy? The, hey, look over here, so that we're no longer worried about who it really might have been? Did he sign up for that role? If so, why? I don't know. I just got questions. And here with this card is urging us to keep asking questions because some things are out of view. So if things are filling off to you too, then keep asking questions. Keep asking questions. And if he did sign up for that role, who did he sign up with? Because now the story that they were going to use to incite violence is no longer having the effect that it was having, that it had for 24 hours. So I don't know. And if he is the person who took out Charlie Kirk, that was some really professional style pew-pewing. Oh, he was a hunter. Oh, he was this. From that far away, underneath the tent. So do we have some of the facts wrong? Did it not come from that far away? Because I'm wondering, how did he make a shot like that from that far away? And if it wasn't that far away, why was he on the roof over there? And apparently if it was with the type of pew-pew he had, there would have been a bigger mess. So keep asking the questions. Keep paying attention, because some things about the ordeal are just not totally adding up. And then up we've got a new moon card indicating new beginnings and transformation, because we see caterpillars and we see butterflies and we see things emerging, right? Quite beautiful card. But in between 22, with all of his choices that he could have made. And then on the bottom of the deck, we've got the Yod card, which is all about healing and karma and ancestors and needing to contend with family patterns and dynamics that a person doesn't quite know how to contend with. So I would say that this new moon is like a new beginning that doesn't quite take off because of this card on the bottom of the deck. So what does it mean in terms of the question that I asked? Is 22 our guy? I'm not sure the cards really answer that. It shows how it's kind of feeling like it's telling me his story as well. Like, so the way that I just read it, I could also read it like, here's him being indoctrinated, being conditioned by, you know, what their family represents and stands for and believes and all those things. Which has obscured his understanding of reality and his ability to make his own decisions and be his own person. And here he is with all of his choices, and he may never reach that full potential because of certain choices that he has made. And here is him thinking that, you know, if he did it, for example, that this was a good thing and headed for a new start. But this has kind of hijacked any ability for some new beginning because it has obscured the decisions that he's made. And then after the Yod card, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but then we've got the void of course, which means it just comes to a standstill. And then the fourth house, which is all about the heart, so heartbrokenness. And then Saturn, which is all about structure. And then we've got the eighth house, which is all about shadow work. So I feel like this spread here was telling me his story as well. I mean, and then I could say, okay, here's 22. And in the larger context of me asking that question and kind of following the path of how it's unfolding for people across the U.S. with all the questions unanswered and things that feel a little off, and him right in the middle of it. And maybe this is going to be a thing that kind of bridges some of the aisle, so to speak, right? But because of the stark and long and disgusting white supremacist history of the country, well, we'll never really get there, at least not with this incident. This is not the one thing. There'll have to be many other things that continue on to like chip away at that glacier for us. And we're going to have to come back to our heart, find new structure, establish new things and new ways that things work, and then really ask ourselves some questions as a society and individually about how we treat each other. So, two ways to read it. Like I said, I don't think the cards really answered that question for me, but I feel in my gut that the answer is no. He's not the guy. That's what I feel. I feel like he's taken the rap though, and that's confusing to me. As well as I know that another intuitive had this vision while she was doing yoga about the whole planning and the way that story unfolded with him and his father, which adds a whole nother layer of confusion. I feel like my head is cut off. It is, and I've got to like crunch down. I need a better setup, but and hear them planning and she could see parts of how it unfolded, and how he was maybe the person. And for me, I saw a part of, before I watched her video, I had seen a part of the planning, but it felt like a let's take our country back kind of plan that they were coming up with, which is, I mean, both are confusing, right? Both are confusing, because if they were so MAGA, then why would that be your target? Either way it goes, however it's sliced. So, okay, I think I will end it there. Again, if you are interested in the deck, it's the Celestial Bodies deck. A link is in my bio for Art and Oracle, and you can find it there, and I will see you soon.